Hey guys, before we jump into this episode, we wanted to quickly just say that we are so grateful to the many, many frontline workers who have worked tirelessly over the last 2 years, especially to keep us all safe and cared for during the pandemic. We know there are many, many wonderful medical personnel who do go above and beyond to be inclusive and have those nuanced approaches to healthcare. We know a lot of you guys listen to the podcast, and we are so deeply appreciative. We are hoping that conversations like the one we have today can open eyes and hearts and give a voice to many who have felt unheard in their struggle for fair and inclusive healthcare. Love you guys so much. Enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, welcome to the Model Citizen Podcast. We're your hosts, Hunter
And Michaela.
We are so excited to have you here. All right, let's dive in.
It's being recorded, people. We are here
live from my bed.
Always saying that we're live when we're never live, and we're never live.
I'm alive in my bed.
We're island gals, and
I'm an island gal. Can I just tell you something? Here's the deal. I just got back from Trader Joe's and witnessed the most beautiful, heartwarming, just the most precious moment ever. So let me set the stage. So I'm checking out. We're diving in. Okay. I'm checking out. Also, us always saying we're diving in.
Martin literally was like, you guys got to stop saying you're diving in. Because you say it in every, I think people get it. Like, it's even in the intro. Nonetheless,
we're diving in.
In we dive.
So I'm in TJ's and I'm checking out. And there's this girl who is kind of, I want to say maybe in her late 50s. She is this beautiful woman with curly hair, and she's wearing a crown, and she's wearing like a fun Hawaiian shirt. You know how they do at TJ's.
Oh my God.
And I don't know, she's wearing a necklace that says Queen on it. I'm like, yes, I live for this girl. Okay.
Obsessed already.
And then this older gentleman is eyeing her and calls her name out. And I'm like, oh, how cute. They know each other. And he's a customer. So he's going over and he's like, hey, can I check out with you? And she's like, of course, come on over. How is everything? I've missed you, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell he's a little bit nervous. So he goes, hang on 1 second. And he goes and he runs to the flowers. He picks red roses up. He brings them over and she goes, oh my gosh, these are so beautiful. He checks them out and then he goes, I just bought those for you. Are you kidding?
Stop it right now. I just got chills.
Is that not the start of the best Nancy Meyers film ever?
I actually I have my throat.
A lump in your throat.
Is congesting.
Congealed? It's congested. You're sick. You're like
constricting because I'm so moved by this. That is the sweetest damn thing I've ever heard. That is so sweet.
Sweetest darn thing I ever did hear.
Sweetest darn thing that I ever did hear. Wow, what an angel.
And she started tearing up. And I don't know if it was her birthday and that's why she was wearing a crown, or if she's just the queen and that's why she was wearing a crown.
But she probably is just the queen, dude.
But it was just they're both older, in their 60s, I would say, maybe late 50s, but he was definitely in his 60s. And I was just I was like, this is just so special and sweet. And what a guy to do that and to make someone stay like that.
Wow. What a special moment to have witnessed too.
I know, dude.
Your goodness between human beings. And I'm so glad that you started the podcast off with that, because we're about to get into some badness of human beings tonight.
We wanted to outweigh some badness with some goodness.
We wanted to just offset and just start off with something heartwarming, family friendly.
And then take you right back down.
Right. And then take you right back down to the depths. We very rarely are family friendly on here, I gotta say.
Yeah, we're pretty...
certainly not the podcast to listen to with the children in tow.
Right.
How old would you say our listeners start at?
I would say maybe 15.
15, yeah.
I think that 15 is kind of that time where you're right in the prime, right? 15 is when I lost my virginity. Well, I was 14, but which is just so young to me. Seems so young to me.
Younger than I was.
Have we ever talked about? We have to talk about this on another podcast.
I think we kind of did, but we didn't talk about ages or anything like that.
Yeah, it was very young. It was my very first boyfriend. But I think 15 is the age of you're kind of becoming your own person. You can kind of understand exactly what we're talking about. You're in the throes, if you will, of starting your life, right?
Totally. And to those 15-year-olds, we say, we love you and we're here for you.
We say, buckle your boots up, babe.
Yeah,
because
dude, it's not
gonna
great.
Be a fucking bumpy ass ride.
It's going to be a bumpy ass ride. Man, I got to say, the topic we're discussing today got me heated. Got me fucking heated. Like all morning knowing that we were going to record this podcast today.
Did you have like boxing gloves on?
All day. I was in Pilates, I was literally doing cat curls over the reformer. Just
like,
meow, meow. Just absolute steam coming out of my fucking ears like I'm a Looney Tune. All right. Like absolutely just so fired up about it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's one of those topics that like when you think about it and then you talk about it, you get so upset that anyone that like if Brian, God forbid, comes through the door during this podcast,
it's over
for him.
No, he's going to get a swift, I don't know what it's going to be, a pillow.
And the topic is...
The topic is fatphobic doctors.
Yay!
Fatphobic doctors for $200. Boo. You guys, I got to say, I think it's important that we share our own stories. And the whole reason why we even are doing this episode is because I posted on my Instagram stories about an experience at the doctor's. And I'm not kidding, nor am I exaggerating when I say that I have never gotten so many responses from you guys ever about anything that I've ever posted. And a lot of you said, please talk about this on the podcast because there's so many people out there that are going or who are experiencing this. And I think it's important that we start talking about it because it's the only way that we can put a fucking stop to it. But essentially, we want to talk about fatphobic doctors and the experience of plus women going to the doctor and being shamed for the weight immediately.
Right. Or even women who are not plus and who are like barely plus getting shamed. And we'll touch on that as well.
I feel like everyone is getting shamed for their weight. It doesn't matter what you look like. And that's the problem.
Right. It's funny because before we kind of jump into our own stories, we've talked about this before where there's two types of doctors, right? There's the kind of doctor who gets it and listens to you and wants to help you. And then there's the doctor who blames weight for everything. You could be like, I don't know, I have this pulsing sensation in my like pinky finger, lose weight. I don't know, my ear, like the inner ear is kind of hurting a little bit. It's just like a twinge, lose weight. It's always weight related. And it's, to me, is such lazy doctoring, right? Like you didn't go to med school for all those years just to tell your patients, just lose weight.
Right. Not to take a nuanced approach and to consider all of the possible angles of the situation. And it is so upsetting and frustrating. And, I'll kind of jump into my experience the other day. So I had gone into a new primary care physician because, to be honest with you, like I've never really had one particular primary care physician just because of the way that our insurance has changed over the years and all of that. And I wanted to find somebody new. I had heard good things about this doctor just from like local people. I kind of knew going in that there was just no way that I was going to get lucky and have that first, doctor's experience.
Gold.
It's like striking gold. So I posted on my Instagram. I was going in for the purpose of trying to figure out if I do or don't have PCOS. So I've been kind of struggling with the symptoms of it. I don't know if that's what it is. And I wanted to get a blood panel done. So I, made an appointment for a new primary care physician. And I posted on my stories that day, going into the doctor, can't wait for them to immediately tell me my weight is the reason why I have any single issue whatsoever.
Right.
That garnered a lot of responses. Everyone was like, okay, this is me. This is my experience with every doctor. Like this is this is why I don't go to the doctor. So many responses. And then the next story was me having gone to the doctor and come home. And I said, yep, pretty much exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Right.
And that's what happened. I went in there. It was funny because I didn't even know until recently that you can literally say, I don't want to be weighed. You told me that. You were like, no, you can just say you don't want to be weighed. And I was like, oh, well, that's a fucking concept, because that's one of the biggest reasons why I avoid going to the doctor, is because I don't need to be weighed every fucking time I go into the doctor. It's just not necessary, you know?
Even for like if you have like a runny nose, right? Like they're like, step on the scale. It's like, no. And if anything, I'm always like, I don't care about the number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, don't show me the number. I don't want to know it. And don't get us wrong. We're not saying weight doesn't ever have anything to do with maybe there's something wrong, but the way that weight it's always an issue with everything. That is a huge problem because it is so wrong and just not correct. It's just, It's not.
No, it's absolutely not. And I think it's such a point of anxiety for so many people, and why they haven't, gone to the doctor as often as they maybe want to. Right. And, I went in there, I sat down, they took my weight. She was like, well, it's the first time you're here, so I have to take it. And I was like, I don't really want to fight with you, so just don't tell me the number. Right. And she said, okay, no problem. She was really nice, the nurse. So I went in, I sat down, I waited. The doctor finally came in and we started chatting. And almost immediately it went to weight, lifestyle, how much exercise I get, what I eat. It immediately switched to that. Like literally, she didn't ask me if I smoke, if I drink. She didn't ask me anything else other than like my workout and my eating habits. And like if I had considered, quote, this is a quote, had I considered losing weight. Right. Before, like, and I'm like, before what? Because before I come into the doctor, like I'm coming to you, you know what I mean? It was just funny. And it was really honestly hard. And I also explained to her, I was like, yeah, well, I also have been experiencing grief. I lost my brother 8 months ago. It's like, she didn't even ask anything like that. She didn't even consider the fact that we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic. Like any extra energy I have is like work, family, friends, that's pretty much it.
Right.
Didn't even consider asking me anything about that. Right. Didn't even consider asking me, has anything happened in your life to where maybe you would have like gained extra weight or something? Nope, nothing. Literally just took one look at me and assumed everything about who I am and what my lifestyle is like.
Lazy doctoring.
Lazy fucking doctoring. And she was like, well, I want to make sure, diabetes. And I'm like, I've literally never had an issue with diabetes. I get my blood tested all the time because I have fucking health anxiety.
Which is funny because isn't it always good, Michaela?
Always. This is the thing. This is the thing.
What's really interesting, right? And my husband and I always talk about this. So Michaela and I both have the same thing where everyone always goes, well, especially on Instagram, they're like, oh, their blood pressure must be through the roof. Their cholesterol must be through the roof. Yep. Then I get all my blood panels back and it's green lights, perfect. Yep. Perfect on your end, perfect on my end. Whereas my husband, who works out every single day, he wakes up at 6 a.m, works out, he eats a vegan diet. He is the most fit human being I know. His cholesterol and blood pressure are through the roof.
Right.
And it just goes to show, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter. And the way that I almost feel like the way society has ingrained itself in these doctors. And so they don't actually take the time to go, oh, let's see what might be going on. It's like, yeah, I'm grieving. Yeah, my life has turned completely upside down. I'm dealing with maybe a bout of depression or a bout of anxiety. And what does that look like? And let's figure out that point first before saying lose weight. Right. Also, by the way, you work out 3 times a week. You do Pilates 3 times a week. Like you literally work out so much. You do the Peloton, you do all this stuff. And it's like, before saying any of that, let's dig a little bit deeper and let's like take these layers off and say, okay, let's figure out what's going on as a whole instead of just going with the physical just by looking at you.
Right. It's the lack of holistic approach to the whole health industry. And I think that it is so hard and it's so dangerous, and we're going to get into that in a little bit about the dangers of the fat phobia that is just ubiquitous, within the medical world. But, I know that you had experiences too. I mean, this was just for me was so recent. And I was honestly I don't know what I was expecting. I was hoping that maybe because so much has been done in the world, right? To sort of have these conversations. And I was thinking, maybe this landed. Maybe this doctor has like seen the posts and has heard the news stories and has woken themselves up to, the realities of how, BMI
The
is
human
like
body works.
how the human body works, how BMI is not a correct assessment of somebody's health because BMI was actually invented by a mathematician, not a doctor. I mean, we could go into that.
Right. And it's funny because a lot of people, a lot of doctors, actually, one of my experiences is when I would say this was maybe a couple of years ago before I found my current general practitioner, who's lovely, which is, again, I struck gold, but I went through I kissed a lot of frogs before I found her, told me that my BMI, I would have a really hard time getting pregnant. And she was all about the BMI, all about the BMI, all about the BMI for your height, for your weight.
This was your doctor before the one you have?
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, I just want to explain really quickly. So BMI is based off the height and the weight of a person. Michaela just told you it is actually from a mathematician because they had to come up with a way to, what was it? It was a way to calculate.
Yeah, it was like a standardized way of calculating.
Right. But what it doesn't do, it's an inaccurate measure of body fat content. It doesn't take into account muscle mass, bone density, overall body composition, racial, sex differences, all of that, right? This is from University of Pennsylvania. You can do your research on it. It is completely bogus. It should not be ever used to indicate the level of fatness in an individual.
Right.
So, this is something that a lot of doctors try to use, I think, as a crutch, right? To be like, well, look at the chart. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But then look at the chart, but then also look at my blood tests, look at my lifestyle, look at my health history. I used to be 114 pounds and I used to oh my God, when I was 114 pounds, my triglycerides were high. My cholesterol, my everything was off the charts. And everybody was so like, my doctors were like, what's going on here? Because you don't look this way, but your insides are telling me different. And now it's the opposite of you look this way, but your insides are telling me different. And
right.
It's just such bullshit. And there's no way around it because I can tell you, I hate going to the doctor for this very reason. And I have definitely had times in my life where I have held off going, even though I may have been hurting or in pain somewhere or sick, because I don't want to deal with that. And then I only hurt myself because, it's like if I don't have the support from my one person I need the support from, I'm only hurting myself. But I don't want to subject myself to that, right? Like, because then I know, okay, this is going to be anxiety. This is going to be a full day. I'm going to be so sad. It's going to be this, that, and the other thing. And I think a lot of us experience that. I really do. And I think how many of us go undiagnosed and, have ailments and have things that have nothing to do with weight that are so afraid to go into the doctor because they're going to get so picked apart and criticized.
Right. And I mean, I think that there's maybe doctors are out there saying, well, it's a health thing. We're just trying to, and it's like, okay, well, what is to be said about people who are just not going to the doctor because they're so fucking triggered and terrified by your weight conversation that they just don't go? I feel like maybe that's worse, that people are just simply not going to the doctor as opposed to going, taking care of themselves, getting things checked out. I don't understand where the mindset is and why doctors are not waking the fuck up. People are not going to you anymore because they are terrified and triggered.
There's also a way to talk about it, and I think that this is in the same family of how people are with the gym, right? There's the people who shame fat people who say, go to the gym, fucking work out. And then they're at the gym and it's like, oh my God, this fucking fat ass is at the gym. You know how many times I've felt that at the gym? I felt criticized at the gym, but then everyone's telling me to go to the gym. And it's like, what the fuck do you want?
Well, it's almost like people just simply don't like anyone. Like, you know what I mean? It's like people just simply, it's almost as if
it's a you problem.
Plus size people, they can't fucking win. It's definitely a them problem, And it's like, okay, so we can't win for trying. So if fat people go to the gym, oh my gosh, look at this. Like they're really trying to work out. If they don't, of course they're not working out. Like because that, and it's absolute fucking bullshit. And I'm just so sick of seeing all of this, and I think you are too. I think everyone is.
Going back really quickly, to take a few steps back, we read this story about Hannah Catton. Is it Hannah Catton or Hannah Catton?
Hannah Catton.
Hannah Catton. She is 24 years old and she was told to lose weight by doctors. She had kept going into the doctor saying she had really bad pain in her stomach. She had just a litany of symptoms that, put it to a bigger problem. She kept going in saying, oh, it's really painful. It was irregular periods, UTIs, bloating, things like that. And one doctor said that she just needed to lose weight. And then one day she collapsed in pain and finally got a true diagnosis that she had stage 1 ovarian cancer. So again, this is someone who was begging, right? Being like, please, like, take into account what I'm going through. Listen to me. Don't just tell me to lose weight. And by the way, she's a size 10. Like
right.
She's you know what I mean? She's on the thinner side. And the doctor just said, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And she had fucking ovarian cancer. It's like, how many more of these stories? And this is just one story that was published. How many of these stories are happening to all of us every single day? And no one's talking about it.
Right. Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I think she was having these symptoms for 2 years before she was actually given a correct diagnosis.
But she could have caught it way before.
And here's the thing about things like ovarian cancer is that I think it was something like only 20% are caught in early stages. If they are caught within the early stages, there's a 94% chance of living past the 5-year mark, right? So that's huge to me. Like that's like, so you're telling me that the chances of survival if I get an early diagnosis are exponentially higher, but then we have doctors out here that are misdiagnosing because they're blinded by fat phobia. So now the doctors who are there and they're supposed to be saving everyone's lives are now putting people at risk because of this. And the thing that frustrates me the most is that they don't seem to want to acknowledge it. I'm not here to put anyone on the cross. I understand that we are all human beings. We all have inherent biases, but please acknowledge that this is an issue within the medical community. And let's maybe work to address it and to maybe reassess, right? Like how we're dealing with our patients and how our minds are operating when people come in who are, plus sized.
For goodness gracious sake, get some fucking plus size robes.
Yes,
get some plus size gowns.
Please. I'm so sick of my whole vagina hanging out.
I can't go to another fucking visit where I'm sitting there on the little paper thing, which always sticks to my butt when I get up. And I'm sitting on the little paper thing and the robe or the gown, whatever, doesn't close at all. So I have to like cover my body with my hands. And it's like, literally, this is just a fucking awful experience. It's so awful.
Yes.
It's
demeaning. It's demeaning. And there's no fucking dignity in having to sit on a table that, by the way, they're always so small too. Like, can I just say, so fucking tiny. I even have an issue when I do my Pilates, I'm on the reformer machine. That thing is not meant for somebody who's fucking 6 feet tall like me and built like an absolute brick house, a brick shit house. That thing is absolutely not made for me. Everyone else is like propped up on their shoulders. Meanwhile, I am overtaking this thing.
Your legs are out on the floor.
My legs are touching the mirror. My legs are on the 101 freeway. Meanwhile, I've got Karen behind me, who's all of 4 feet tall, just the thing engulfing her. It's like, make some fucking bigger beds, dude. Make some bigger robes, the arm things that check your blood pressure. Can we also not make such a big deal about getting a bigger one? I swear to God, every time I fucking go in and they have to use the bigger blood pressure arm.
They have to page the girl up front and then they all have to talk to each other. They're like, Jessica, do you mind? Do we have the bigger one?
Do we have the really big? I know. I just, can you go get it? Can you actually?
And then someone has to walk a couple miles to get it.
Yeah, right. Just go. God. They have to go to the next hospital down to get it because they only have one because God forbid because they don't want fat people coming anyway. So they don't want to have any of the stuff around.
Do you know that's how I found out I had. So like, here's the
Oh,
thing.
yes. This is interesting.
The whole reason that I was diagnosed with preeclampsia in pregnancy was kind of a fluke because I have a blood pressure machine at home. And because my husband, like I mentioned, he has high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And so he takes it regularly. So when I was pregnant, I used his armband thing. And I was like, whoa, the number feels really off. Well, yeah, because, eventually when I met with one of the top blood pressure, like incredible physicians in the country, she was like, if you don't have the right size band, that number means nothing. And by the way, if your legs are crossed, and by the way, if your arm is not raised, the number means nothing. But she's like, people just throw it on you. And then if you even move, it spikes. And then they're like, you have high blood pressure. You know what I mean? Like there's just no accounting for any of that. Anyway, so I had put it on and I was like, oh, this is kind of high. This is a little concerning. So I called my doctor and she was like, yeah, that is pretty high. Why don't you go into labor and delivery just in case and get everything checked out? And I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we went into labor and delivery. When we got there, they put the right size cuff on my arm. Blood pressure was perfect. It was totally fine. So they had to monitor me. And they were like, well, I don't know what the deal was, but no one asked me, was the cuff a different size? What's the deal? Until I met with this specialist. She was like, so is the cuff a different size? She was like, just so you know, that's a completely different read. You need a cuff that fits your arm correctly. And I was like, no, it's the one my husband uses. And she's like, did you not think of that? And I was like, no one fucking told. Like,
right? How are we supposed to know?
And also because no one ever takes that into account with me because they're always like, whatever, just give her what we have mentality in the doctor's office and never really specialize anything to me, God forbid. And then I ended up doing a 24-hour like urine thing and they found a little bit of protein. And again, because of my size, they had to treat it as preeclampsia. So it was like very, very light, like it was very cautiously treated, right? Even when I was giving birth, they were like, I don't know, your blood pressure is totally fine. Everything's fine. Like, I don't know, but anyways.
They were almost just like willing the blood pressure to go up.
They were.
They needed to confirm. They needed their confirmation.
Before they delivered.
Bias.
Yeah.
They were like, maybe if I look harder at the blood pressure, it'll go up.
Maybe
so
if
that
I spook her.
Maybe if I scare her, maybe I'm going to pop up behind her and her blood pressure will go up. And then I can finally have my confirmation bias where, all plus size women have high blood pressure and then we can all move on with our fucking lives.
Right.
Sorry, guys. So sorry that didn't happen. She had great blood pressure the whole time she was delivering.
Right. And I think that's, I get a lot of messages and I know you do too. And I know that you're going to share some of them. Women come to me and they're like, how was it being pregnant and being plus size? Or how was it getting pregnant? Like, I'm so frightened of that. People literally come to me and they're like, I am so afraid to get pregnant and I am plus size and I'm currently pregnant and I'm so nervous and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I loved being pregnant. I literally loved being pregnant. It was such a beautiful time. I loved my body. Like I've never loved my body more. Like I was just like, oh my God, I love this body of mine. It's incredible. And we were able to get pregnant. I mean, thank God, by the grace of God, I know it's not that easy for a lot of people, but we were able to get pregnant fairly fast. And, I think again, even around that, there's so much misconception and everyone just automatically points to, you're going to have a hard time with everything in your life. If you're plus size, if you're overweight, if you're good luck doing literally anything because it's going to be hard for you. That's so ingrained in us. So we're afraid to live life. Right. And I think that we really have to flip this conversation around.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be a more nuanced conversation. There needs to be more of a holistic approach. And I hate to say holistic because every time I think of holistic, I think of like going in and them giving like me berries and twigs for, to heal something. But like when I say holistic, I mean literally like there needs to be a nuanced approach. And it's so interesting that you say, you get a lot of messages about pregnancy because one of the messages that I got from my follower, she said that they had gone to see a fertility doctor and the first thing was counting her BMI. She said, I'm 5'10" and weigh 154 pounds. And she was like, well, that is on the heavy side. So, and she was like, what the fuck?
5'10" and she weighs 154
5'10" and 154. And here's the thing is like, she obviously knows that she is healthy. Like in her mind, she wouldn't say any of this. She
Right.
obviously is saying like, I'm healthy. Like I feel like I'm an average size or whatever is considered average weight for my size or height. But the fact that the doctor just hit her with the BMI first and foremost, red flag. The
Yeah.
fact that she was like, that's overweight, red flag. It's like,
Yeah.
it just makes me so sad because the fact that this doctor, I mean, you're going to a fertility doctor, like your emotions are already high. If
Right.
you're going into a fertility doctor, there's a good chance that you've been struggling to get pregnant. You're so hopeful. You're sensitive.
And you want someone to be there for you. You want so, especially the person who's going to help you through this journey, you know?
Absolutely. And so for that person, this person that you're supposed to just trust, with such a delicate thing, for them to say that, it just made me so sad for her,
Yeah,
and for her
that is really, it really is, it's such a hard thing. It's interesting. I talked about that girl, Hannah Catton, and I had posted about her. And I just said, read on her story. We're going to talk about this on the podcast today. She messaged me back and said, wow, thank you for getting the word out. The response is insane. I really hope it encourages people to be loud for themselves and to not lie down and just accept the shit excuses for symptoms.
Yes, queen.
And yes, queen.
Right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, let's not accept this shit and let's be advocates for ourselves and stand up for ourselves. And, I feel very, very lucky that I have found doctors now that are so lovely.
Yeah.
And I think I get a lot of messages from people being like, how do you do that? It's like dating, right? You have to date around for the right doctor. Before I even really meet a doctor, I try to get on the phone with them. I had gotten on the phone with one before I found my previous doctor, and she sounded great. Then I met with her, and then I told you guys the story, of course. But you kind of know immediately, like, I'm going to go ahead and gauge kill that you're a doctor you're not crazy about.
No.
You probably want to find someone new, right?
I do. Well, one thing that I was thinking we could do is in the comments for this episode on the Instagrams, we should have people, if you have a great doctor in your area that you go to that is, not fatphobic, tell us where you like the city maybe that you live in. And that way other people can come to the comments and see like, oh, okay, this is the doctor and this is the city.
I'll start with one with two in New York City. One is my general practitioner. Her name is Dr. Holly Gilbert. She is an internist and she specializes in I don't fucking like viruses and stuff like
viruses,
that, right? So, but she's also a general practitioner and she is lovely. Like she never mentions my weight. She always looks at the problem. She goes so much further. If anything, I mention my weight. And then she's like, well, I mean, she'll be like, yeah, if that's something you're wanting to do, then yeah, go, then do it. Like she's never pushing anything on me. And then my OBGYN, unfortunately, she doesn't deliver babies. Otherwise I would have had her deliver my baby, but she is in the city and her name is Dr. Yulia Baruch. Michaela had met her once. Yeah. She's so incredible. I have referred so many people to her. So many have gone to her. She is she's a curvy girl herself and she just gets it. She is so lovely. And I just couldn't recommend those two more. So, and we'll put their information, of course, but it would be really cool to kind of get a Rolodex almost of different doctors from different areas. Well,
I feel like that's the only way that anyone's going to really know, because how do you know unless you actually go in? It's not like there's Yelp reviews where they're like, this doctor fat shamed me. You know, I think that this would be really helpful for people. So, and even if you're listening to this and you're in the medical field, if you yourself are a doctor, if you are a nurse, if you are an RD, anything, an OBGYN, please come into the comments, say who you are, where you are, and just let us and the listeners know that you are somebody that they are safe with,
Yeah. And one quick thing before we go, I want to point out, I saw these cards floating around on Instagram and were created by more-love.org. This is not sponsored by them. I've seen them everywhere and I thought that they were so lovely. They're please don't weigh me cards. And I think that these are so incredible. The resource created it to help parents actually raise kids who are free from body hate, disordered eating, and eating disorders. They're a subtle way to send a strong message to medical staff, Please don't weigh me unless it's really medically necessary. If you really need my weight, please tell me why so that I can give you my informed consent. That is so incredible. I think that every doctor should implement this. I just think it's also a way to not have to sit there and be like, say it out loud and then make it a thing and then have to feel like you have to explain why and, whatever it is, just simply handing them that card and being like, okay, I get it. Like kind of how you on Uber, you can request if your Uber driver doesn't talk.
Right.
Like,
which is the best thing that Uber ever
the best. I think that those cards should be implemented in every single doctor's office.
Yep. Absolutely. And to your point, I don't like that conversation I have to have with the nurse, where I'm like, please don't weigh me. I don't want to have to fucking, be like I'm in a court of law every time I go in there and have to defend why I don't want to be weighed, And a lot of times I have to say, I'm like, I come from, disordered eating or something. It's like, I shouldn't have to say anything about it. I shouldn't have to say any single thing because it's my body. And if the weight is a conversation, then you need to tell me why exactly.
Right. Totally.
So yeah, I hope that they implement those cards everywhere. Can you download them and just have them? Probably.
Yeah, you can get them delivered to you. Okay, we're going to post these, guys. So for $5, it covers the expense for 5 cards, which they mail you through USPS. This is amazing. It literally just says, please don't weigh me unless it's really medically necessary. And then the rest that I told you. This is brilliant. They even have some that say, they have them in Spanish, they have them in different languages. They also have one that says, please don't talk about my child's weight. If you have any questions, ask me when my child is not present. Oh, bless these people.
God. Thank the Lord. Think about how many lives. Literally, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I am going to be dramatic because I come from a theatrical background. But the amount of lives that could probably be saved from just these cards being something that you can have.
And it being a non-negotiable. Your doctor
no negotiations.
Just saying, okay, no worries, let's go.
Yeah, you're not going to force me on that fucking scale anymore. No more. I'm going on the scale if I feel like it.
That's right.
If I feel like a good punch in my own gut.
The only scale that I am into is the one that is weighing my honey roasted turkey at Whole Foods. Okay.
The only scale that I'm interested is the singing scale. That's the only scale.
The only scale that I am currently into is the hotness scale, which I'm off the charts.
Right, exactly. Those are the only the singing scale, the weighing of our honey hot ham, and the hotness. Those are the only scales that we care about. Hashtag hot or not, and what needs to be said more. Thank you guys so much for listening. We love you guys. If you are, if you can feel and relate to this, let us know in the comments. We want our Instagram to be a community of supportive people. So go on the Instagram, comment, where you are, who your doctor is, if you're a doctor, any of that, or even if you've just felt this and experienced this. I think just hearing from other people is so healing. And it's so incredible to have that support. So definitely go to the Instagram and check it out. We love you guys so much.
Peace, love.
Peace, love in Jesus Christ.
In Jesus Christ.
Jesus be a fence. All right. Love you guys. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can catch a new episode of Model Citizen every Thursday. And please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. We want to hear from you, so please leave a rating and review. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes action at Hunter McGrady and Nikhil McGrady. And don't forget, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are capable of doing all wonderful things. Bye, guys.